Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again.
It's time for the J. Craig 5, maybe 10-minute movie review. Hey everybody, welcome back to Movies Over Coffee. I'm Jay of the J. Craig Podcast. Hey, if you haven't done so already, click the subscribe button, like and follow us, and check out all our movie reviews as well as the podcast at thejaycraig.com. So this is a very special Movies Over Coffee review because last night I got the fantastic chance to go see 2001 A Space Odyssey at the Redford Theater, 70 millimeter print. Let me tell you, this was awesome. Now, okay, let me start this by saying I've actually never fully seen 2001 A Space Odyssey. I know. I'm a film guy, right? I'm a guy who loves movies, and I've never seen that movie. Now, I've tried on multiple occasions. In fact, every time I've seen that movie, I've fallen asleep. Now, we tried it when I was a little younger, and then again when I was a little bit older, and just never seemed to grab me. Now, I've always watched that movie in a very dark room with, kind of lying down, and so I've always found the movie to be very hypnotic and very tranquil, and it just kind of put me out. I never have ever told anybody that I disliked the movie because of that, but I just never really seen it. So this was an opportunity for me, for one, to see it on the big screen for the first time, and for one, to see the movie in its entirety and not have the chance to fall asleep. And I'm so glad I did. First of all, the Redford Theater here in Michigan, if anybody's listening from Michigan, if you're in the area of Detroit, go to the Redford Theater. This is a place where people love movies. Like, everyone who works there is a volunteer. They all love movies. They have a lot of knowledge. The building is amazing looking on the inside. It's not in the greatest area, but it looks amazing on the inside. And again, it's for people who love movies. So they do these, old movies every once in a while. And the fact that we get a chance to see them on the big screen is cool. So I saw The Searchers there with my buddy Bob a few months back, I think somewhere around March. And it was cool, but it wasn't nearly as packed. This movie, almost every seat, and it's a huge theater, was sold out, was packed up. And I was impressed. A lot of young kids, young kids, younger kids, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds. I was really impressed with the size of the audience. So that being said, I'm a big movie guy, right? And the fact that I never got a chance to really sit down and do this is kind of embarrassing. So I'm so glad that I got a chance to finally watch this movie. So 2001 was made in 1968, and it was directed by Stanley Kubrick. And I've always admired Stanley Kubrick. I don't really like all his movies. I know, another admission here. I've never been a big fan of his movies. Now, I do like Full Metal Jacket and The Shining, and there's a couple others movies I really like. But I appreciate him. If you say who are the best filmmakers of all time, I'm going to include Stanley Kubrick in that mix, even though I don't like all his movies, because I understand what he's done. I understand his imprint on filmmaking. He was a fantastic filmmaker, and he made amazingly beautiful movies that I always just don't understand. Much like David Lynch. I don't like David Lynch movies. I just don't get them. So 2001 Space Odyssey, I took my buddy Paul. And I don't think Paul liked it too much because it's a little, doesn't really explain anything. But so for all of you who don't know, 2001 Space Odyssey is, again, it was made in 1968. And it's before all the things that we know, right? It's before Star Wars. It's before all the big blockbusters. And this movie did not hit very well off the bat. Like the first couple weeks, they were thinking about pulling it. And then the theater owners convinced the studios to keep the movie going because they realized that they recognized that there was a younger generation coming in to see these movies, and they were really fixated on the Stargate sequence and they were using the psychedelic drugs. It's 68, and so that really helped. That really helped the long-lasting ability of it. Really helped the financial aspect of 2001 when its initial release. And I think it's really cool is that the psychedelic drug people came in and kind of saved the movie because they were just, they could. And quite frankly, when I saw that sequence, the Stargate sequence for the first time, I was like, holy crap, what were they on when they made this? But so it's made in 1968, and what I was really impressed by was, first of all, the sound design is absolutely amazing. The music is unbelievably matched to what's going on. It's just, that's why I always called it very tranquil and hypnotic and put me out, is the music and the cinematography together is just, it's something to behold. It's amazing. And then the cinematography is just the shots, the composition of the scenes is just utterly amazing. So, and then another thing that I was noticing, the sets. I mean, there was some incredibly amazing detailed sets that some science fiction movies today can't even look like. I mean, I'm like, man, this is really good looking. I mean, I couldn't believe the detail in this movie for 1968. What I was also impressed by was the use of corporate sponsorships in this movie. You know, like Fight Club, where the Microsoft Galaxy and the Starbucks universe and all that kind of stuff we talk about. But right off the bat, you see Pan America is, on the shuttle going out into space. There's Whirlpool. There's, oh my God, I wish I would have been able to write these down. I saw so many in the first 5 to, well, not 10 minutes, but in that first sequence in space, which is in the 30-minute mark. I was amazed with all the different corporate sponsorships in this movie. And I'm like, wow. So the cool thing about good sci-fi movies is the people making these movies, they have an idea of what's going to happen, or they're putting their finger on something, or they're just guessing. Who knows what it is? But sometimes they take that leap of where things might be, and they get it right. And that's really cool when a talented filmmaker can almost foresee what's going to happen. And I'm sure there was corporate sponsorships back then, but this seemed very heavy in the corporate sponsorship at first, and I was really surprised by that. So yeah, like in the first moon base, there's almost like phone stations, right? And I forget the names on them. It was the Hilton something or other, and so you see all these different names scattered over. I was really surprised by that. I was like, is that earlier than it really started, or is that just the start of it, or did he kind of predict that in a way? I think it's really cool. So, but I mean, for all you out there, 2001: Space Odyssey is it's a hard movie to get through in a way, because it's not telling a straightforward story. Good sci-fi, like proper sci-fi. I'm not talking about science fiction, fantasy, like Star Wars and stuff like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about true sci-fi. It's not always explainable, and it's not supposed to be. And I think that's the one, and I know that's the one thing that Paul had a problem with it, is he likes his movies he wants to understand it. And if it's something that you have to think about, he's not going to. He's going to let it go. It's going to wash off when he walks out of the theater. So it's one of those movies where it's true sci-fi. You are thinking about it. Your mind is going crazy. You're trying to piece it together. You're trying to formulate your own theories for it. Like, what are the monoliths? What are these black things that keep showing up? Well, for me, at first I thought it was man's eventual destruction of things, like what we do, our ability to destroy. And I think that was brought upon by intellect. And once we got the intelligence, that's when we were able to, keep making more destructive things. And then when it went into space and you had the other monoliths show up, I thought it was, again, about not destruction, but at the same time, birth. Like, was the monolith that was on the moon, is that the same one that we saw when it said the birth of man? And maybe that's what the moon looked like a long time ago? I don't know. That's what my mind was going with because, that's the whole thing about sci-fi. You're thinking about it. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think there's different monoliths, but monoliths, for me, represent the evolution of man and the rebirth of something new. So in the first one, you have the monolith with the apes, and then that created mankind. Now, mankind mixed with the monolith gets you artificial intelligence, right? So now, when the end of this movie, the last act of this movie, when they're going to Jupiter, I believe it's Hal who is trying to connect with the monolith to make the next evolution of species. That was my thinking. Now, I don't truly know what Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke were going for there, but my take is that that's where they were trying to do. Instead of that, mankind keeps messing things up. Mankind's always the error. Mankind always screws things up, and so Hal is trying to get rid of the people on the ship, so he can do this on his own. But instead, the guy outwits the robot Hal 9000 and goes through this Stargate, trips out, and then goes through the Stargate and creates a new being, a new species, the dawn of something new. That's what I take from the movie, and I'm sure you have a lot of other options. Folks below, tell me what you think 2001's about. I love this kind of topic. That's what I loved about Annihilation earlier this year, is a movie that you want to think about, a movie that you want to process, a movie that you want to discuss. And that's the beautiful part about a good science fiction movie, that it leaves open-ended questions that they're not supposed to be answered. Take what you can from it, because they're trying to give you something to make your own on your own in a way, right? That's what I love about a good movie like that. Even though a lot of people might understand it, and even I don't. I think that's really cool. So that's what and I also was curious, and maybe you guys can help me with this. The monolith that we see in Jupiter floating around that merges with the human and then goes through the Stargate or whatever that is, was that brought with them? Because there's a comment in the movie from Mission Control about the monolith, and it sounded like they were saying this is a 70 millimeter print, so the sound wasn't amazing at every point. There was a couple times where I couldn't hear the actual dialogue through the speakers, just because it's so old. But it sounded like they were saying the monolith was with them. Is that true? Was the monolith with them, or was the monolith waiting for them at Jupiter, and that's why they were going there? So again, a movie that doesn't answer questions as much as it asks them. It doesn't answer them. It asks them more often than answers. But it's so the movie's about, I think, exploration, obviously, right? But the birth of something new. And that's what I took from it. And I really thought throughout most of the movie it was about destruction and mankind's ability to destroy. So I was thinking, I knew that Hal kind of went on a rampage or kind of went haywire at one point throughout the movie. So I knew that when I was getting to the midpoint, I knew that if Hal was going on that meant, okay, I was right. So the destruction of man, he gets the bone, he destroys the head, and now that we developed Hal, thanks to the monolith, that intellect, the intelligence, we developed Hal, and now it's going to destroy us. See what I'm saying? So I was trying to make that correlation. I was watching a movie, and then I think I've changed my mind on that, more about rebirth and evolution. But that's what's cool, isn't it? It's just really good sci-fi. But what a beautiful movie, an amazing experience watching it on a big 70 millimeter print with a crowd that was just eager and pleased to watch the movie. And sure, a lot of people are going to be confused still, but hey, that's the beautiful part about it. So if you haven't seen it, do go see it. If you like good sci-fi, it's there. For anyone who hasn't heard of it yet, any of the younger audience out there, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick, watch it. You've got to stay through it. Stay through. The first 30 minutes is a little bizarre, and then it changes gears completely. And by the way, talk about a great midpoint. So this is cool. This is the way the movie was supposed to be shown by Stanley Kubrick. He wanted a curtain music. He wanted an overture. He wanted an intermission. He wanted an exit, and I forgot the name of the exiture. And then curtain music. So curtain music. I've never heard of this. So the movie started. The movie didn't start. The music started. Everything went, and they have curtains over the screen. Which I'll show you. I showed you a picture at the beginning. And then all of a sudden the music starts playing, but the screens don't open. So me, naturally, I'm like, open the fucking open up the curtains. Open up the movie's starting. Come on, don't mess this up for me. And I'm sitting there waiting. I'm getting a little impatient. And I'm not saying all that, but you could feel the energy from me. I'm like, come on, man. I'm saying a couple words under my breath. And all of a sudden, finally, the logo comes up for MGM, and the curtains open. I was like, oh, that is really cool. It's just like, it's an experience. And then they had a great midpoint, which took the movie in a totally different direction. And then the same thing happened at the movie with the exiture, whatever they call it. But super cool. Very cool movie, very cool experience. If you get a chance to see it in the big screen, I highly recommend it. It's going to be playing here in Michigan, in Troy, I believe, somewhere in the end of August. Go see it. Go see it on the big screen where it's supposed to be seen. Don't see it on TV. Watch it on a big screen. It's awesome. And leave me your comments below. Let me know what you think, what the monolith is, what the movie is about. And let's talk about good sci-fi. Don't forget to subscribe over here. Boop. And check out our other videos. Thanks for listening to this edition of Movies Over Coffee for 2001: Space Odyssey. Classic movie review time. Until next time.